Hey again, scholars. This is Scholar TV back for another guide to the Guild. Today we're going to discuss loot within the Scholars Society, in particular how our loot system is structured and how loot determinations are made. So, just like last time, we'll get the screen up and get started. Now, the first thing we need to discuss is the where to find information on loot. For that, you'll want to head to the server guide in Discord. Don't remember how to get there? Be sure to watch the onboarding video. Once you're in the server guide, you'll want to go to the Raid Rules and End Requirements section. That's where we explain our loot system. Now there is more information on that page than loot rules. It has raid schedules, add-ons, buff and gear requirements, and a few other raiding odds and ends. But the two main focuses I have for us today are the loot system and dues. Let's start with the loot system. Our guild operates with a loot council system, a common system of loot distribution that utilizes a group of leadership members to determine who gets what items. There are variations on how other guilds do it, and ours is unique in some ways. First, let's talk about who is on your loot council. Each raid team's council is made up of their raid leader and 2 assistant raid leaders. During the week before your raid, the 3 council members have a standing meeting for 30 minutes to an hour where they discuss loot that has been distributed, gearing needs of players, and priorities for items that may drop in the week ahead. They utilize our website tool, that's mybis.com, to review the entire history of loot drops for the guild from the start of the team to present day. They also look at raid members' wish lists on that site to see what items members are prioritizing more than others. They leave that meeting with a rough idea of what items will go where and who is prioritized for gearing, but that's not the end of the story. During raid, Loot Council has no idea what to expect to drop. It's all random chance. Some nights the gear drops are great, sometimes they're terrible. Not to mention, teams can have runs of good or bad luck for weeks at a time. Sometimes it's class-specific. Warriors get all the gear leaving nothing for their caster friends, or the reverse. So Loot Council has one more meeting the night of the raid, after the bosses has been killed, to distribute the actual loot that's been dropped. This is the last opportunity for Loot Council to discuss loot priorities and adjust based on absences that night before finally distributing the gear. Now, you may be wondering what Loot Council is talking about in all of these meetings, but they are kept secret, and for good reason. Protecting Loot Council deliberations allows the council to stay unified rather than publicly airing disagreements, be efficient without having other voices chiming in, respects player privacy when we need to be honest about our view of a player's abilities or commitment, and finally, to focus on the facts rather than pressure from the audience. Having said that, we can share the kinds of things that Loot Council looks for in those meetings, so you understand the logic behind our decisions. Loot Council operates on a weighted 4-factor system. That means that the higher up on the list, the more important it is to our determination. Think of it like a pyramid. At the top is, where does the gear do the most good for the team? Under that is, does the player give us any cause for concern? Here we're looking at things like attitude, likelihood they'll remain raiding, attendance. Third is who gets the biggest upgrade from the piece, and finally activity in guild outside of raid. Now, after the loot has been distributed, sometimes members feel a certain kind of way about who got what piece. Trust us, we know Loot Council won't make everyone happy all of the time. So what's important is to know what you should do if you have a problem with your Loot Council or disagree about where a piece went.
You know, everyone has lots of ways of feeling. And all those ways of feeling are fine. It's what we do with our feelings that matter in this life.
You'd think we wouldn't need a video about that, but we know from history that not everyone acts with respect for one another in this game. What should be apparent from this video is how hard Loot Council works to prepare and make the best choice for their team. And one thing I promise McFaithful will never allow is anyone to yell or disrespect the hard work of those on the Loot Council. So protect your spot on your team and in your guild by following these helpful tricks. First, we end raid late at night after 3 long hours. Just log off for the night. Come back online the next days or a few days later and ask your raid lead or trusted assistant raid lead to talk about loot for a few minutes. Consider too, that'smybus.com is an open and transparent resource. Don't make assumptions about what gear others have received or how long you feel like it's been since you got an upgrade. Go look at the database on your own. Also, if you do meet with your council member, be respectful. Ask questions like, could you tell me more about how you determined where X piece would go? Avoid questions like, why the didn't I get that piece? Are you stupid? Again, speaking from experience, I've never seen the latter go well for the raider with a problem. Now, as far as the mechanics go, our guild uses the add-on RC Loot Council as our in-game interface for the council. The add-on will allow you to select buttons as indicators of what you want and don't care about. It includes a need or main spec button, an off spec or greed button, a minor upgrade button, a pass button, and a note button. So let's talk about what to do with each of these buttons. The main spec button should be used for your primary raid designated spec roles. These are BIS items, BIS alternatives, or simply upgrades. The minor upgrade button is similar, but it tells Loot Council you're not that worried about getting the piece, but rather than see it disenchanted, you'd still wear it immediately. Off-spec or greed button is used if you have a second spec and you'll use the item for your character. What off-spec is not is a way to score some vendor loot or nexus crystals if no one wants the piece. The guild reserves these mats to share with all members of our raiding corps. So if Loot Councils see this, it's unlikely you'll receive off-spec pieces. Pass is self-explanatory, so let's talk about the note button. This is the most underutilized, but most helpful input that raiders can use to help Loot Council. Folks type notes like, last piece for 8 out of 8, third on my wish list, and things like that. Unhelpful notes are, I deserve this, clearly it's going to me, and things of that nature. One important thing to note is that your council isn't bound by your selection. If someone passed on a base item that others only greeted on, they can award that player the item. If someone rolls minor upgrade, but someone else runs their off-spec regularly in the raid, they can award it to off-spec role. Think of a warrior DPS who off-tanks on specific fights. The RC Loot Council selections are ways of communicating. The 4 factors we discussed earlier decide where loot goes. Since you're experts on how we do loot in our 5 40-person raid teams, let's talk about one small departure from the typical loot system, which is for our 20-man signups. For ZG and AQ20, our guild utilizes a 2 soft reserve system. This gives you a priority role over those who didn't soft reserve the item. Your raid leader will send you a link to the site softrest.it, and you'll select your 2 items. Keep in mind, these items must be main spec for your raid designation. You can also double soft reserve the same item and get 2 rolls on the item each time it drops that night. Remember though, if you win the item at any point, both soft reserves are exhausted, even if it's the first one. The last thing we need to talk about is related to loot, but not exactly on point, and that is the dues system. We collect 5 gold from each raider so we can buy materials in bulk and craft consumables for the whole team. That's economies of scale. By pooling our gold, we skip auction house markups, get better deals, and turn everyone's small contribution into a big stockpile of flasks and protection potions. More supplies, lower cost, and the raid stays fully stocked without anyone overspending. Right now, in Phase 5, we're crafting each team 2 Titans flasks, 60 nature protection potions, and 30 frost oils. Try getting all that yourself for 5 gold. And that's it. That's everything you need to know to join an Adept Scholars Society raid, and to understand where the loot's going and why. And always remember one thing. If you're ever confused, just ask. Adept Scholars Society is about community first, and everyone is ready to lend a hand. We'll see you all around Azeroth, folks. Be well and onwards. This is Scholar TV signing off.